Good afternoon or good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Donovan Carter. Today is Saturday, May 25th, 2024. We're in Apalachicola, Florida, on Water Street. Today, I am joined by
Bennett Carroll.
Beckett Price.
and we'll also have another researcher joining us shortly. And today we have the honor of interviewing Miss.
Denys Vasquez-Welch.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
And could you spell your name for the record first, please?
Denys
Okay.
Vasquez-Welch.
Okay. Awesome. And can you tell us a little bit about where you're from and what brought you here today?
Well, I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I was born and raised Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay.
But what's brought me here today is I'm a direct descendant of Juana in John Horse band. She is my fourth times great-grandmother, and that's what brings me here. I'm a direct descendant, and I came here to represent our family.
This is amazing. Okay, I want to get the names correct, 'cause as you said them. So you said Juana and John Horse?
Juana is her name. That's his sister. John Horse is the, most people know his name for the Second Seminole War. When you're talking about these wars, you know about John Horse, you know about Abraham, but nobody ever talks about the women. So we are on a mission to make sure that the women are being highlighted just as much as the men. And I'm a direct descendant of one fabulous woman.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be sure to speak in the name of Juana as we continue in our interview. And also as we go back and we take the story back with us.
Okay. She's not the only one.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I can tell you about my other grandmothers. So as we talk, maybe they'll come
Yes.
out.
That'll be good. So I guess what makes today important? I guess in the greater history of the Seminole Nation and the commemoration of this site and
The inclusion now with the descendants, because before there was always a lot of talk about us, but not to us. And that is a little bit disturbing. And it gets a lot of the information incorrect. So there's a lot of papers, there's a lot of books, there's a lot of dissertations going on without the correct information. And this has happened over the years. My whole lifetime I've heard of it, I've heralded it, I'm speaking of it sometimes, and now we've come together as descendants and we've decided that it's time for us to talk and correct these incorrect information and let our voice be heard. So.
I love what you said here, talking about us but not to us, and this active kind of reclaiming history and, or I guess bringing truth to it. There's so many like myths and lies that are being perpetuated. And we spoke with some other folks earlier today, other kind of scholars and people who've been here and who've shared about why that is also important. But could you, I guess, as a direct descendant, speak maybe a little more intimately or personally about that? About why, perhaps, about just what makes this important continually, I guess, in bringing this to a new generation of people, especially, with the education in Florida going on right now, and I'm sure definitely in Texas, right? And
Texas, Mexico, Oklahoma.
Right. So what makes, I guess, what would you want to contribute to this education going forward?
The narrative of the escaped slave, I've heard a lot of people when you were interviewing, they really harp in on that one. But I don't think that the narrative of free people of color and then indigenous people of color is being talked about. Because the only way in books and in documentaries and whatnot, the inclusion of blacks into indigenous culture has to be some sort of escaped slave scenario. when that's not true. The absolute truth, if you really want to go to it, is that there have always been indigenous people here of color on this land prior to slavery happening. So this narrative now is prevalent, it's always some escaped slave scenario, and that's not true. We are indigenous, we are a part of the tribe, and we happen to be people of color, like everyone else. So, and we sacrificed, we fought, we died here, we had generations of children here, and we left here against our will, unconquered, just as everyone else, as the indigenous tribe would say, the Creeks or the Seminoles, which we still are, we're still part of that. And we are unconquered also. And we, each time in history, you'll see those events in our life, our lifespans, and why we're still here. It's not just here in Florida. We're successful here in Florida. We're successful in Oklahoma. We're successful in Mexico, and we were successful in Texas. So that circle or diamond, whatever you want to call it, we continually maintain our freedom today. So that would be the main thing for me, is the escaped slave narrative to be put to rest.
That's amazing. I love this word you use, unconquered. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
And also these connections that you're relating to not only beyond like state boundaries, but international boundaries too. And
yeah.
Just this, that diamond you mentioned, I love that, that imagery. And I'll pass it off to Beckett. I have a question.
Yeah, thank you. Greetings.
Hi.
I love the story that you're giving us, and I really love and appreciate your perspective. I just wanted to start off with that. I think on a day like today, so many people that we've interviewed have their own purpose and meaning as to what the fort aligns with them and sort of their ancestry and their culture. Mm-hmm. I think the runaway slave narrative is one that's very prominent in the overlap between the Seminole Nation and African American enslaved cultures. Mm-hmm. What does it feel to you in a sense of being able to include your ancestors in a narrative that lets their autonomy speak for them, rather than it be sort of, in a way, I don't want to say subtracted, but they're so much more than that. Right?
Definitely. It means a lot, because, again, when we don't speak, it's really not being told. And you really need to hear directly from us, the descendants. And that really gives you the context of what's really going on. And if we don't speak up, especially now in this day and age, that voice is just going to be gone forever. So I tell all my cousins and our family, this is our generation, is our time to make sure that this history is preserved. Because if we don't do it, it's gone forever. We're that middle hinge generation. We have all the necessary ingredients to make sure that this thing lasts. And so we decided as descendants that, okay, we're going to go out here and make sure our story is being told correctly. Because we were removed from here 186 years ago. And now I'm back, right? Because my great-great-grandmother and uncle and all of our ancestors weren't able to come back. And that was a longing that they had, and they weren't able to achieve that. So now I am. I've come back, I've come full circle for them. And I'm bringing along the rest of my descendants, my cousins. And we're coming back, and we're gonna make sure our story is being told correctly. It might not be pretty to a lot of people, but it is the truth. And the truth is just what it is. And that's what we're here to do. Mm-hmm.
I love that. That's so powerful.
Oh.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry. Oh, no, you go. Quick question.
Yeah.
You said you kind of were able to return back. Is this your first time in Florida?
No, I've been in Florida for about 5 years now. And it's odd, but I was called. I was called home here, and I had no intention of being in Florida. I'm, like I said, from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I come here. Every part in my life has led me to this moment. So I've been called home, and I'm doing the work.
Yes.
So I'm not the only one. A lot of my cousins are here too. So I'm here to spread the medicine. I'm the firekeeper, as we say in our culture, as bringing the history and the genealogy, is keeper of the flame, and I'm one of many, and I do my part, my side, to make sure all of our family members know our history, and that you're tied to each other. So that's a main thing that's missing, because identity is very, very problematic in our community because of all the migrations. It's hard to say that we are one, right? So we have the Seminole history part, the African part, and then with the Mexico part, we have that another layer, right? So, who are you? And like, what box do you choose? There's no box for us. We are all of that, and then some more. So it's very important that we tell our story so we know who we are, and so you can know who we are and stop trying to tell us who we are. So that's one.
So I want to ask you, on that note, you kind of telling, not being told about, but speaking for yourself, right?
Right.
How did you come to learn this history or come to learn this story? How was it taught to you?
Oh, we've been taught as a kid from the beginning. When you were around my aunts, uncles, cousins, extended family, we gather all the time and talk about our history. My aunt Tila, she's the main one. She's the oldest of my father's family group of the women, the matriarch. And she would always sit us down and say, "You've got to know this history." And she would tell us stories, and mainly it would be the battles of the Seminole Negro Indian Scouts, because it was in Texas, and that's a big history in Texas for us. And we're the only Indian Scout troop or regiment, you want to call it a regiment, that's not recognized as an Indian Scout regiment. But we are called, and all of our documents say Seminole Negro Indian Scout, but they are not recognized. So if you go to the National Archives and you ask for the Indian Scout regiments, you will not find one in Texas, although we are there from 1870 to 1914. And the interesting part of that is because of the color component. That's the only reason, nothing else. But we do exist, and we did exist, and we did such a phenomenal job. We have 4 Medal of Honor recipients in that, and it's the second largest burial site. We have a burial site there in Brackettville, Texas. 4 Medal of Honor recipients that are buried there. It's the second largest site of burial for Medal of Honor recipients outside of Arlington National Cemetery. Like, that is the history that we hold in our community. And that's just the end of our history, because, the Seminole Wars, we go from there, and then you got your history in Oklahoma, and then you go to Mexico. We got loads of history there, some fighting in there, Maximilian, we got some things in there. So then we go to Texas. So this is a very layered, very complex history, and lots of historical moments that are untold to books, right? But not untold to us. The family we know, they're like, we've heard this our whole life, my whole life. But it's unknown to outsiders. So it's not little known, and then it's not hidden. It's just not known to you.
Wow. And I'm sure there's just an incredible power in that, kind of holding the history amongst yourselves and keeping it. You said you've been in Florida for a while, but have you been to I believe, Nacimiento in Mexico as well?
Yes, of course. That's where my father was born.
Oh.
I'm going in June. Juneteenth, we have a celebration. It's the only city or town in Mexico that celebrates Juneteenth. And we have a history with that. And it's more so of a solidarity because we were not emancipated. We were always free. And it's a celebration to say we know what that freedom it feels like, and when emancipation happened, we're going to celebrate with you too because we've had it, almost 20 years prior to you, but the same feeling is the same feeling. And then, who doesn't like a party? So yes, I go. It happens every year, but I don't go every year. My father wants to go back this year again. He's in his 80s, so. Get many times between when you get to be 80 to go back and forth. So anytime he wants to go, we go.
That's amazing. And I'll ask, despite this great distance between these groups, I guess what are, the most clear similarities or shared practices that you see, or do you see? I imagine that with such a distance, maybe some things get lost. Do you see that? Or do you see maybe the opposite? Maybe more things are staying together than you?
Oh no, things get lost. We do have a disconnect between the communities, and it's getting a little bit more divided, and that's why we've come together as descendants to make sure that that bridge stays together. And we're actually making projects to make sure that we go to each other's events and show up. Like this one here in Florida, although I'm the only one here today, we make sure that I'll go get the information, and then next year or the year after, we bring a bigger group each time. And we'll be doing that in Oklahoma, we do it in Texas, we do it in Mexico. So we know that we continue those connections. That bridge needs to be open.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to know about. Sorry, I guess I'm making an assumption. You went out to the fort this morning with everybody, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to know what it was like to stand on the ground that your ancestors stood on. What was it like to be on that same site, and what feelings sort of arose?
It's euphoric, really, when you go walk in the footsteps of your ancestors. Now, this fort here, I'm not necessarily certain that that my Juana and John Horace were here. I know the books try to say that, but it's a contradiction there. And so that's another part we're trying to do as descendants to make sure that history is actually accurate. But as far as Abraham and whatnot also too. But there's also other sites that I've been through too in Florida, and I know that my ancestors were there, and when I'm there, it's like I said, it's euphoric. It's like looking through their eyes, and I've tried to make sure that not only that I do that I bring my children and my grandchildren along with my cousins, and they bring their children and grandchildren, because there's no story that you can hear that's going to give you the feeling when you actually put your feet where their feet were, and especially talking about the battles, because when you're talking about a battle and when you're talking about death, right? It's hard to fathom that, because it's 100 and something years ago. But if you go and you put your feet on that land and you look and see what they saw and try to imagine what they went through, it's a whole different feeling. And I try to make sure that when I'm there, I get these, I don't know, I don't want to call them callings, but the feelings, you get feelings, and things speak to me. And I really appreciate that. So that's what I've got. When I get that, it's not scary or spooky, it's more reverence. And I love that. That's me. It makes me whole. I know that I'm doing something that the ancestors want me to do, and I'm bringing their spirit back because they want to be home. And I'm that vehicle. So yes.
Thank you. That was I love that reverence, where the like heavy presence. That I think you mentioned your other grandmothers at the beginning of the interview, aside from Juana, and I wanted to know a little bit more about them.
Yes, there's Bowlegs and Payne are the names that you hear here in Florida, especially, I know you hear Billy Bowlegs, right? But I'm not from Billy Bowlegs, but the Bowlegs family is where I'm from, and the Payne family. And I don't want to give you their names right now because I'll be doing a whole skit on that, but I'll give you their last names. And the Waxahachie battlefield, you talked to Dr. Tinney. She was, gave you an interview. I can show you the whole page of my relatives that were removed from there. That they have a manifest, and I can go right to the page, and I can go down. These are all, all my ancestors right here. And my grandmother that was there in the Waxahachie battlefield, she was 6 years old at the time of that battle. And if she had not made it, if that family had not made it, I wouldn't be here today. And her husband was also there, and he's 9 at that time. And so you imagine that this battle is going on, and they're 6 and 9 years old and having to live through that with their parents, who are adults at that time too. But I'm thinking of her as 6, not more of her as her mother, because a 6-year-old, like when I was 6, I wasn't thinking about survival. So when I went there in that reverence, I just see her and feel her, what is she thinking at this moment at 6 years old, that she was going to live and have me, like, I bet you she wasn't thinking that. But I'm here today, and just because of that moment in her life. And it was a 2-hour battle. It's 2 hours of your life, 2 hours. And I'm here, and I'm not the only one. So that's what I do. When I go there, that's the thoughts that come to me. Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead.
That's beautiful. I think here at SPOHP, we have the privilege of being able to ask wonderful people like yourself these questions, and we kind of we overlap with a lot of like the family's historians, right? But you mentioned earlier, like your significance in your role within your tribe and your community is as like a firekeeper, correct?
Keeping the flame. I keep the flame. Yeah, I'm the keeper of the flame.
I understand that there's a large amount of significance of that in indigenous cultures, just because oral history is something that is passed down intergenerationally. It is everything.
Right.
But what does keeping the fire mean to you then?
Making sure that our family lines are intact and true. Like that's the main thing. We do 7 generations, and we do it in our head. So like that's really, it's not feasible today, right? Like you can't do it. Can you go 2 generations back in your head? You're shaky, right? But we do this in our head, and for me, it's like natural because I've been taught, right? But if I'm trying to do it to my son and to my grandchildren, they're like, who is what? Like I can't remember. So that's the main thing, trying to do 7 generations back and to 7 generations forward, and keeping those truths together, those lines, the people, and that's a big task to do. So that's the keeper of the flame does that, not only oral, we have to do it on paper now. That's our task. Mm-hmm.
That seems like such a massive task.
It is. It is.
But also it makes, I think, days like these so much more gratifying and hold so much more reverence of being able to see through a task even, or
yes,
be surrounded in it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Donovan, do you have any questions?
Yes. It's a little, we're switching gears a bit, but I want to ask you about what you're wearing. You're absolutely lovely today.
Oh, thank you.
Could you tell us about it? If it has significance or meaning?
Sure. It's interesting for our side of the family. When we were removed from Florida, and went into Mexico, a lot of our traditions and our culture went dormant. And we didn't continue on doing the things that if we had been left in Florida, without any interference, would have naturally been a part of my life. But as have it, we didn't. So this is a fire, everlasting fire. It's a one rendition. There are many different, but this is what it means. And like I said, I'm the keeper of the flame. And what was taken from us that went dormant was our bands and clan system. And in Seminole history today and Creek history, the books say that we weren't entitled to one. Well, I disagree because we were part of the tribe, and just because you don't recognize the band or the clan as your tribal one doesn't mean that we didn't have one or we didn't have a system. So for me, because it's dormant and it lives in my blood, I started with the fire to let to know that this is coming. We're coming back. We've already returned, and now we're bringing our genealogy together, our family lines. The fire's coming, and then we're going to bring our bands and clans back together, because that, like I said, wasn't taken. It's just dormant, and now the fire is igniting that. So that's what this is, and had it specially made to say the fire is hot, is on. So
That's
yeah.
amazing. Absolutely love that. I'll also ask about your grandmothers. And, you spoke to the strength and the courage of the women who were involved not only in the Seminole Wars and your grandmother who was a child during the battle, but as you used the word earlier, matriarchs and community, which means community leaders and familial headship roles. So, what about as you talk about kind of keeping the flame now, what about this? Maybe did you learn or inspired you from your grandmother specifically? Could you maybe share a little bit about that? If that question makes sense. I can ask it again.
yeah, it's let me understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned the importance of kind of keeping the flame, and you kind of spoke with reference to your grandmothers earlier. And I want to know if there's a relationship between maybe this act of kind of remembrance and also maybe an intimate or personal relationship between you and your grandmothers or any other matriarchal figures in your life or community or family?
If I understand your question correctly, the desire of doing this particular work, did it come from my grandmothers? Definitely from the community and at large for the women. And specifically, I'll talk about Juana, because Juana was talked about in the storybooks. She wasn't talked to. See, you have a lot of information, there's a lot of letters written about her and about her children, but you don't talk to her. And so we, as in the oral history, we get her side of the story, right? But it's not written anywhere. And what's the significance of that is that she was fighting for herself and her children, but her family, the community that we are, and she's fighting alongside her brother. So that, and I have 2 younger brothers and an older sister, and so I know that struggle where you want your family to survive, and I just imagine her being an older sister, as I am, to my younger brother, and go out into the world and do something. So me and my brother that's right under me, we both are military. And I'm retired Army and he's a Marine. And that, just us 2 doing that, and we're right the middle children, we're right in the middle. And I think, isn't that a parallel with her and her brother and how they had to go out and struggle. And now I'm looking at me and my brother, and we are doing military, and I think, see, and I look at my dad and his brothers and sisters, there's 10 of them. So I'm thinking, wow, you know, what is that, the struggle on? And like I said, my Aunt Tila, she was the main one. She was very vocal. She was very, she's straightforward. And if you're gonna learn this history, and I would always tell her, okay, Aunt Tila, I'm gonna come back, I'll get that, we'll talk about that. Oh, no, you're gonna hear, you're gonna sit, and you're gonna listen now. Okay. So we would listen. But most of us, we're young, you know, when you're young, you do the rolling of the eyes, you know, like, oh, here we go. Here we go. And it wasn't until I got in later in life, and I think that grandmother age is the one that gets you, right? When you become a grandmother, you start seeing, oh, I'm talking about my grandmother, and I am a grandmother. So that's the one that hit me. So I said, what do I want my grandchildren to know about me? And then what do I know about my grandmothers that I wished I would have known more, other than you're just telling me? Because they're women. They're women first, and not just, you know, bake me cookies, or, you know, cook me this or cook me that or do that. And I was like, what do I want my grandkids to know? And I started asking more questions, and they were like, oh, so now you want to know about more about the family. I'm like, can I ask? I can ask now, right? You know, I can change my mind. So yes, that's the main thing, is when it hits you that the history is not just around you, it's through you and about you. So the past and your future, because somebody's going to be asking about me one day, hopefully. We'll see.
Wow. Sorry, I'm just writing down what you said. That was amazing. I just hope I can read this later. My handwriting is atrocious. I want to go back to Juana a little bit. Your fourth great grandmother. So let's say, imagine, I guess you open your door at home one evening and Juana is before you. I guess, what do you say to her? What do you ask her? What do you want her to know about?
The first thing I would say is thank you. You know, thank you for your courage and your fortitude to get your children, your family to safety, and to make sure that you continue on your courage. Thank you for your courage. And without her saving her children, her surviving children, she lost 2. And the surviving children, and she had one that was shot later on. So 3 of her children were taken, or tragically taken from her. So, but she still continued on. She still kept going. She still kept being a survivor. And without that, I wouldn't be here. So I would say thank you.
Would you ask her? Would you ask her questions?
Oh, definitely. I would ask her. Definitely some very important questions about our history. I won't share that here, but yes, I would definitely ask her questions. And then I would definitely want to know if she is happy that, you know, I know she's happy about the return, but am I doing what she would want me to do? Like, in my path, am I doing these daily things that she would want me to be doing? And that would be my second question. Am I doing what you want me to be doing? Did you need me to do something else? So yes, I would be doing that.
Is there anything you would want her to know about you?
I think she knows it already, but you know, like I would definitely tell her that the main thing is to honor her return, right? That's the one that I want her to know, that they weren't able to come back in the physical life, but I intend to make sure that their spirit is back. They've returned to their homeland, and that it has been restored. That full circle. We've come back. That's what I would want her to know.
Okay, well, this concludes our interview. Thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you.